these aliens. Positively sure I'm absolutely mad about something. Oh, I'm positively sure I'm absolutely crazy too. Oh.
My name's Mark Starr and welcome to Little Green Man, the show that proves Canadian politics is very, very sexy indeed. Oh yeah. Now I've got a question for you. What has the royal family ever done for us?
Medicine? Education?
No, that was the Romans. These guys. What have the royal family done for us? It's actually a lot easier to answer that question, at least in recent terms, with what have we done for the royal family? I'm going to go there just very quickly. It's a very simple little thing that happened. A wedding happened. There was a royal wedding. Of course, taxpayer money went to it. Who else would pay for it? They certainly wouldn't pay for much of it themselves. Side note, sorry. About £32 million was actually spent on the wedding. It was about $55 million Canadian. Let's put that into perspective for you there. That's £30 million was paid for by the British taxpayer. That's about £10 million more than was estimated. Now, if we put that in perspective with an average Canadian wedding, that would be approximately $32,000 to $51,000 Canadian. Compare that with the $55 million Canadian for the royal wedding. So they got a gift of a wedding that was more than $1 million. Let's put this much better. $1 million is approximately what someone making minimum wage right now, $11.15, will make for 40 years, their entire working life, $1 million. So that's 55 people could an entire life's work for 55 people, or certainly 55 families. Put that in perspective, for one day in the life of one royal couple. So we give them a lot, and because we can go through all the other things that the royal family does have and what it doesn't have. It has the land, it has all that, it has income off that land as well, plus it gets a rather healthy stipend from the British government. I don't know how much of that comes from the Canadian government or from the Canadian taxpayers, I should say, but it's kind of really relevant for what I'm getting to, for what I really want to say. The big problem, I think, is with the royal family is I was really indifferent to this. Now, I think a lot of people are fairly indifferent to the royal family. They're there, it's kind of nice. They're so nice to have around. Every now and again, you see them waving as they drive by. Should you live in London or you want to go look at the big house at the end of Pall Mall, that kind of thing. But really, up till this year, I hadn't really cared one way or the other whether we have a royal family or not. My thoughts have changed on that just quite recently, just within the last few weeks, last few months, while I was thinking about this very question. Well, not a joke. It was a serious question that I started to think about. What have they done for us? What do we have them to thank for? What do we really have them to thank for? Well, for a start, I just want to quickly dispel the myth that the royal family, that Elizabeth and Prince Charles, and of course their offspring, are English. They are not English. They are not of English descent. They are, in fact, a German family. And when I say a German family, we've got Mountbattens, which was Prince Philip's last name, and the Windsors, which was Elizabeth's last name. But they were actually related by blood. They're cousins, second or third cousins, something along those lines. So they're the same family, part of the same family tree, not in an immoral or taboo way, I hasten to add. But they're not English. They are actually a German royal family. Now, do you remember during the last presidential election in the US, so a comedian, John Oliver, came up with the notion to dig into a little bit into the Trump family history, and they came up with, his name isn't really Trump, it's Drumpf. Or at least several hundred years ago, his family changed his name from Drumpf to Trump. And let's make fun of that because it's funny. And it kind of is, really. But we can do the same thing with the royal family. How far do we have to go back to get their real name? What is Elizabeth Windsor's real name? Well, she's not a Windsor, that's an affectation. And it was something that was added, the name was changed during the First World War because of a very, very massive anti-German sentiment that was going through the British Isles. No kidding! So Elizabeth's name is actually Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. That's the name of the house. Now it's the House of Windsor. It was the House of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. And it was changed in 1917 because of the war. And Prince Philip, I forget, he was actually born in Greece. The royal family that was kind of dethroned, I believe. And his family name wasn't actually Mountbatten, it was Battenberg. These were German families with German names that had German friends and family. And pretty much at the time, at that time of the First World War, pretty much all the royal families, whether they were reigning or not, were all related by blood. So let's put that in perspective, is that when the Russian Revolution happened, and was it Prince Wilhelm? Probably got the name wrong, I didn't write it down. Nicholas II, sorry, was actually Queen Victoria's grandson. So when the Russian Revolution happened and everyone was, oh, it's horrible, it's really a blood feud between the people of Russia and the royal family and the ruling class of Great Britain. So there was it was a little bit more than just, oh look, they're communists and they're being unruly. It was a matter of, this is our family they kicked out and potentially could have executed. And so when we look at the world now, things are just a little bit different when we realize one country is in relation to another country. It's the people at the top, the ruling people, the royal families are all the same blood. They are related by blood. So they're all one big happy family defending each other when they're not too busy trying to battle each other and kill each other to steal their lands, which the royal family seems to do, which is really sort of odd. So then what did the royal family actually give us? Right now they're pretty much an affectation. They're a wave in the window. They're a caricature of this big posh family that speaks like no English people speak. And they live in a way that no English people live. And they hang out with people that English people do not hang out with at all. And they get a free ride and a free ticket, and everybody else pretty much pays their way for them. And so after 2 world wars fighting with Germany and other skirmishes with other countries that are pretty much ruled by people who are related to our current queen, we are still tricked into virtually worshipping a family that didn't even originate in the British Isles, let alone not being English. That's one thing, fair enough, right? Everything's settled down, whatever happened in the past has happened in the past. But, unfortunately, a lot of what happened in the past is still happening and affecting everybody now in an incredibly massive way. So let's go back to the first English king, as he's often referred to. Let's be William the Conqueror. Think about that. William the Conqueror, 1066, invaded, killed King Harold, and stole the throne, depending on how you want to interpret what happened then. Was he the real king or was he not? Irrelevant. He came along, decided he wanted that land, brought some Norman soldiers, there might have been a few, but he actually brought Flemish soldiers over, mercenaries, came over and took over England, having killed the king, killed a lot of people. And what was the first thing that William did? He instituted this wonderful, wonderful British institution called feudalism. He turned what were free living British citizens and turned them into slaves that were bound to the land. It's different from the chattel slavery that was seen in the US for sure, but it was still slavery nonetheless. And it was slavery that lasted from the time that the Normans landed on the shores of Hastings to well into the 1600s. And there was the effects of feudalism, of the people being peasants, working for the lord and master, having to give them pretty much everything that they produced and giving it to the lord of the manor. And having no freedom of their own, or very little freedom of their own. And that was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. But that's not Queen Elizabeth's fault. William was 1,000 years earlier, nothing to do with him. Unfortunately, Queen Elizabeth is the 22nd granddaughter of William the Conqueror. Go look that up. She is related by blood to the man that took freedom from the English people and turned them into slaves for the best part of 500-600 years. So what do we have to thank the royal family for? Well, feudalism. But feudalism's gone, it's long past. Well, actually, feudalism has gone, but that developed into a very clear and a very unfair and a very biased rich versus poor class system, where the very few people that had lots were the royal family and the cream of the crop and the nobles. And then you had the working class and the working poor and the not working poor, the unemployed poor. And then you had several layers of, or strata of social class in between, with most people being in that bottom half and many of them starving. And as feudalism collapsed, the common lands that the peasants were allowed to feed their animals on, or to go hunting, or to gather firewood, to snare some game, that kind of thing, where they could eke out some kind of subsistence, was enclosed, and it was turned into sheep farms, so that they can no longer take part in that. As the sheep farms grew and grew and grew, become more where privatization took place, and we're talking like the 1600s here. This isn't something that just happened. And it turned that privatization turned the people that used to be bound to the land, but they're no longer bound to the land. They had their literal freedom to go and be poor. And there was a massive waves of vagrants wandering across the United Kingdom, or it wasn't the United Kingdom, but across the British Isles, looking for work, looking for food, looking for a future. And this happened for hundreds of years. And as the class system settled down, that then develops into that capitalism. With the privatization, the capitalism grew up and out of that, and then the industrialization made the capitalists even more powerful. And then some commoners were able to float to the surface and become the new upper class, the merchant class, and were sort of able to merge. The new money was able to merge with the old money a bit. And so here we are. Looking back now from all of that the royal family has given us, abject poverty. There's diseases that came along with the poverty, the oppression and the death and the destruction and the lives and the futures lost. That's what we have to thank William the Conqueror for. Why are we calling him William the Conqueror? No, William the Enslaver. William, the son of who took our ancestors and turned them into slaves. That is the legacy of this royal family. Elizabeth isn't responsible for that, and none of her family, none of her immediate family are responsible for that. But she has got what she's got because her great-grandfather, 22 times removed, invaded and turned us into slaves. The only reason she's got the land she does, the only reason that we are her subjects, is because we were once slaves to her family. And funnily enough, we are still her subjects. What has the royal family given us? Not so near as damn much as we've given them. We've given them our land, we gave them our freedom, and now they just sit there as if nothing had happened, taking our money. Little Green Man. This is the back door to the Manitoba Legislature. Now if you hit the subscribe button now, hit the notification bell, then you won't be surprised when they try to stick something up your back door. Hi, my name is Mark Stallard and welcome to Little Green Man. Money and politics is one of those things that can really get me fired up. If you want to have a good debate with me, or a fiery one, pick money and politics as a good start. So when I saw this article online with the Winnipeg Free Press, I thought this is definitely something worth talking about. It was actually released posted today online, late this afternoon. It's written by Nick Martin. And the title, Liberal Hopeful Pulls Out of Debates, subtitled, Lamoureux Launches Boycotts in Protest of Admission Fees. If I can say it, it would mean something. But so that kind of tells you really kind of where it's going. Cindy Lamoureux is the MLA in question who is boycotting the Liberal Party leadership convention. The issue she has with it is $15 admission fee for Liberal members and for people who just want to come along and watch rather than to vote and participate. It's an additional $5. Now her big complaint is that she's making a political statement, she says. I'll quote it for you now. I'm making a political statement, Lamoureux said by email. I believe the leadership race should be about growing our party and means engaging our current membership and bringing in new members. Which is fine, sure. Sounds like a decent reason. Lamoureux is I believe one of three people that are shooting for or aiming, I should say, for the leadership of the provincial Liberal Party, one being Dugald Lamont and River Heights MLA John Gerard. And of course, the John Gerard actually had something to say about this, and I'm going to quote that a little bit later. Now, why is there a reason why Lamoureux is concerned about how much it costs to get into something like this? Well, probably. I think there's a pretty good chance that it has to do with her riding. She is MLA for Burrows, which is north end of Winnipeg, has a lesser, lower average income, and so she's concerned. I mean, I haven't actually checked the statistics, but there's probably a fairly high level of minimum wage, or certainly low age earners in that riding, and so it makes absolute sense for her to take this stance. She needs to be, as an MLA, she should be looking out for the interests of her constituents. So kudos for her. I think that she's brought this out. And now we should discuss it, and it's something that money in politics, something big and huge that is going to become very, very ugly if it hasn't already. Now, Lamoureux actually went on further to say that if Elections Manitoba wanted to charge people to vote, I would speak out against it. I would argue that this would be voter suppression, as it would discourage people from voting. And that is why I am taking a principled stand on this, she said. It is hard to understand the logic. Now, John Gerard defended the fees. He's a MLA of River Heights, which has if you actually drive through River Heights, you'd say, yeah, look at the two neighbourhoods. Yeah, there's probably far more money in River Heights than there is in Burrows. Not that it's necessarily a massively richer area, but it's noticeably richer. $15 may not necessarily mean as much to someone who is making double minimum wage. But if someone's making minimum wage or close to it, a $15 entrance fee after you've taken taxes off. And now, don't forget that there's 20% or so of income tax, federal, provincial, and payroll taxes is about 20%, and then don't forget, and then you've got the additional 13% PST and GST as well that people have to pay. So after they've paid all their taxes, they're really left with, we can break it down, $11 as minimum wage, and so we're probably looking at 2 full, maybe 3 hours of solid work for someone on minimum wage to be able to afford to go to this event. See, it seems like a lot more money now when you put it in those terms. So to pay $15 so you can vote on the leadership of the party of which you're a member, and it's going to take you have to work for 2, maybe more hours of work to be able to afford to get that. That's a lot of money if you want to think of it that way. Now that's all well and good, and that's great. Lamoureux, thank you very much for bringing this up and giving us an opportunity to talk about it. Hopefully this conversation will continue to go money and politics, per vote tax almost, at least within the parties themselves. Now, what was really, I think, really noticeable were the quotes that came up from the John Gerard from the Liberal Party, was that they are saying, there's this one phrase that comes up a couple of times here, as I feel it is important to respect the decisions of the Manitoba Liberal Party board has made. Yeah, and the sentence goes on, but it's the whole idea of respect. You're not respectful. You need to toe the line. Well, it was just, okay, but she did agree to it. I mean, as is mentioned, that the rules were set before anybody entered the race. She agreed to the rules before she got in the race, and it's being disrespectful because it is disrespectful to the members, supporters, board, leadership, coaches, and staff of the Manitoba Liberal Party. This is not leadership. Well, let me ask you a question, Liberal leadership people. Is that if Cindy Lamoureux had decided, I want to be a leader of this party, and I think there's good things for this party, and she obviously does, and this is the future of the province. I'm sure she thinks that as well, and she wants to do well, but she wants to improve you. So how do you improve something where she has to agree to the rules before she can even join, and she gets criticised when she says, hang on a minute, this is unfair to a rather large portion of the population. So is it that you could say some negative things, well, maybe she shouldn't have, but it's not disrespectful. It would be absolutely disrespectful to her constituents if she hadn't brought this up, if she wasn't taking this approach. And I guarantee you that she's more likely to get re-elected than any of you who are standing there saying, don't disrespect the party. But she's out there, at least in this instance, she's making the effort to stand up for her constituents. And this whole idea of toe the line, do what the party wants, is not democracy. The party should be doing what the people want. If you're not doing what the people want, you're not going to get elected. And I think that you should follow Lamoureau's lead, at least give her a fair and even chance on this one. Let her make the argument, let her make the case. Because right now, leadership of the Liberal Party in Manitoba, you're looking very petty. Let's have that discussion. Money in politics, should people pay to vote, even within parties? Let's have that discussion. I think it's worth having. Little green man.